don't let that title fool you. Um, I'm going to talk about white people and how we raise our kids. Now, forgive me if I look a little less than coiffed today. Um, Normally, I try to bring my best self to the video, and today is not that. I have been in a period of deep learning and introspection, if I'm very honest. Gosh, I sure hope the sound is working here. I've been trying. But I've been in a deep period of learning and introspection, and I know this to be true because, oh my gosh, the agony, the internal agony. But got to face these things, you know, got to face these things. And I want to go ahead and apologize in advance. I am a slow talker, slow talker. In fact, most of the time when I was, well, let's just say I'm a slow talker. If my slow speech bothers you too much, feel free to play it, on double speed, because I think it's important that I speak at my pace in my way the best I can, because otherwise I might not at all. But I want to talk to you a little bit today because I'm still doing the work, and as we do the work, and I mean capital T, the capital W work, the work of being human, the work of being the best human I can be in community, the work of how do I want to be in community, okay? And as I do the work, sometimes I hit a wall and I don't know what that wall is or why. And I have a video that I've been doing research for y'all, because there's some things I want to share. But when I got into the research, I hit a wall, and the wall was the bullies who are doing things in one name. Meanwhile, just robbing us blind of our means of being, of our well-being, of our health, of our peace. The bullies that are pushing Black women out of jobs at record numbers, the bullies. I don't even like using the word bully. I can give you a whole story on that. But the people who are targeting people, and I knew I had to stop and process some things. And so what I'm really going to let you in on is I got Epstein stuff, Trumpstein stuff on my mind. Because as more information keeps coming out, and this is a set of facts about our nation's history where I think we owe it to future generations to be on top of this at some level. I don't know what level, because honest to gosh, it seems the depths of depravity are pretty far. but I'm hearing these accounts of these rich white folks behaving in particular ways. And then I'm like, okay, well, what did we do when I was coming up? What did we, because we were white folks. Okay, I lived in a very segregated community, growing up in a very currently red state. What were we doing? What were we doing to keep our kids safe? Okay. And I'm a retired public educator. Keeping kids safe is my calling, is helping kids have a life where they can grow. That's my calling. Like, that was what it was about for me. When I was learning how to read, the first thing I wanted to do was help others read. When I was learning how to science and reason, the first thing I wanted to do was share with others. When I was learning how to garden, I wanted to share. So this is who I am. I'm an educator at heart, not by education. But sometimes I have to stop and ask, how in the heck did I even make it out of the 80s? And so, I was born in the 70s, early 70s. How in God's name did I make it out of the 80s? And I'm listening to the information coming out about the Trumpstein ways of being. Okay. And then I'm listening to so general rule of thumb. I know I'm digressing a little bit here, but I make it a point to always listen to people who I perceive as smarter than me and have different experiences than I have. Okay. Like that's a real priority whether it was in person or online. And so now I continue that ethic online. And so I listen to Danielle Moody and I listen to Heather Cox Richardson and I listen to a whole lot of others. But those two in particular have brought me two pieces of information through their analysis of what's going on with the Trumpstein issue. I believe they call it the Epstein class or issue. My understanding is that calling it the Epstein class is coming off as anti-Semitic, and I can see how that could happen because let's just be honest, this was a whiteness thing, okay? And I can get you there if you need me to help you. I can get you there. So I prefer Trumpstein, even though I don't fully understand the critique of why people are like, maybe don't call it Epstein class, maybe don't call it that. That's okay. I was not wanting to disassociate the Trump and MAGA group from this anyway, because these are the ecosystems that allowed a Trump to rise up. Okay, these are the ecosystems that allowed it. So here's the two things that were shared with me via other analysts, people who, in my opinion, have a credible intellectual claim. Okay. One piece of information that was shared with me was shared by Danielle Moody. And if you need me to, I can go back and find which episode it was. And, she revealed that there were some emails in the Epstein files that were released. And this is a detail that I don't think hit many people, but it's a detail that shook me. She revealed that there was evidence in some of those emails that Black and brown girls were not welcome to be victimized by the Trumpstein circle. Okay. She shared this from an email. I can go back and find it. Honest to God, that detail, we know, the minute you make an accusation of racism, people would be like, oh, no, I wasn't racist. You know what? I'm not even going to worry about the veracity of what was said in that email. Okay? I'm not even going to worry about that. Here's what I do know. There is racism among the rich people. And the pedophiles of these rich people, it would not surprise me one bit. Like, even if I don't have that email, to hear about that email, now I'm going to have to go find that email. But to hear that an email was passed among these rich people, we would like to victimize some girls. Black and brown girls need not apply. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I don't believe it's to anybody's benefit, one way or another, who you're choosing to victimize. Victimization is victimization. Okay, victimization is victimization. But here's what I will tell you, white people. If that detail has not gotten to you somehow, just take a look at the world around you and the people around you and think about it. Okay, let's hold that Danielle Moody detail. And now let's bring another detail. Pedophiles of the Trumpstein class say Black and brown girls need not apply. Okay, so let's set that detail down. Danielle Moody shared that with us. It was from the emails in the Epstein files. I like to call them the Trumpstein files. Now I'm going to share another detail. And this detail is a little more recent. When Heather Cox Richardson, you should be following both these people if you have the bandwidth, okay? Okay, I say you should. Heather Cox Richardson, sorry about the should, but I feel that way because they really have helped me connect some dots, okay? So Heather Cox Richardson is sharing information about pardons after the Civil War. Okay, pardons after the Civil War. And if you want me to find the episode for you, I could probably do it. Here's what's important, not the episode. The information resonated in a way that, again, shook me. Okay, white people, pay attention. She was sharing how there were pardons after the assassination of Lincoln and after the end of the Civil War that were given to all these Civil War generals and military folks of highish rank. I don't know the details, and I don't need to know the details on that because I got details that I know otherwise that are a little more important to what I'm really trying to get to. But apparently, a round of pardons went through after the Civil War in an effort to make peace with the South, so to speak. And when, not unlike the January 6th stuff, except not as inclusive, okay? The first round of pardons were not enough. So these enslavers, these men of means of the South, who formerly owned people, I'm not sure. I can't say they gave all their people up when they got their butt whooped in the war, okay? But these former enslavers that had committed acts of war against the Union were not all pardoned. And so some of them sent letters and said, please pardon us, please. And they got a few more pardons. And but that still didn't pardon everybody. Well, here's the detail that Heather Cox Richardson shared with me that got me really shook. She explained that then the so-called Southern gentlemen, the former enslavers, current enslavers, I don't know what they were. The rich people who got defeated in the Civil War, who didn't receive a pardon, some of them then sent their daughters. They sent their daughters, presumably their white daughters because they were Southern enslavers, to the president for additional pardons. And they had their daughters fawn over this man and earned a few more pardons. Okay. So these two little details, I just want to make this connection to the history of how white women and girls, you're being traded as commodities. You're being traded as commodities. Now, I was a poor girl growing up, and I grew up in the same environment where women and girls were being traded as commodities by the rich, okay? Because as the Epstein files come out, and as Melania is, the lady doth protest too much business, we're finding out that this stuff was going on in the 80s. I don't know how far back. Again, I'm not really on top of the Epstein files directly. I don't do direct analysis of the Trumpstein circle because it triggers me. Dude, it triggers me. So, here we go. Here's me coming up in the 80s. Now, I'm going to first off say, my family, we were poor. My family did not do a very good job of protecting me in the 80s. They did not. And I don't think I'm alone in that. However, there was a period of awareness in the 80s where children were just being abducted and sometimes found dead. And I remember in my middle school experience, probably about the time my body was starting to fill out with secondary sexual characteristics, okay? I remember being at the bus stop a few times, one time even alone. And god damn it, if a white van didn't come up and roll down its window. Now, I can't remember for sure if it was a white van with no windows, but I always tell it that way because one thing my mother did do is she occasionally warned me very clearly about the dangers of the living. As a matter of fact, there was a great Aunt Arnelda-ism. Okay, my mom's name is Arnelda, her aunt's name is Arnelda, and we have these ways of speaking because often we were scared of ghosts growing up, and our Arnelda-ism was, "Don't be scared of the dead, honey. It's the living that are gonna get you." And you know what? I was still scared of ghosts, but I was additionally scared of people because what my mother did impart on me was that, okay, you might be scared of dead people, you might be scared of ghosts, you might be scared of that Muppet under your bed that's going to come out and grab your feet. But guess what, honey? There's something more dangerous. It's called people. And she didn't speak too much at length about the dangers, but there were times where she would say, "Don't get in that van. You will not be found. Or if you're found, you will probably not be found alive." Now, maybe it's because we poor white kids, we just got raped and dumped in ditches. Okay? So maybe that's what that was. So I knew never get in the fucking van. Never get in the van. I think my mother saved my life by explaining to me, don't get in a van with a stranger. Okay. Does anybody see where I'm going yet? And it's okay if you don't, because I'm not entirely sure I know where I'm going here, but I'm going to tell you what. I grew up knowing that not everybody has my best interests at heart. And I also grew up knowing that there were people out there who were okay with hurting children, hurting young people deeply. Is that something to unpack in therapy? Maybe, but I'm alive to do it. Okay? Now, I don't think every person gets such a honest appraisal of humanity from their parents. Okay? My mom was never going to win the game. She worked as a waitress for Denny's and Steak and Shake, Burger Chef before that, earning minimum wage for all the hell I give my mother. And I do hold her responsible for a lot of things. One thing she didn't do, she didn't, just quit on us. Like, she took care of us, for the most part. She did her very best to take care of us. Enough of the mother issues. Okay, but here's the thing, guys. There's a faction of humanity, and I don't believe that this part is a racial issue, because I need you to know, to me, race is an artificial social construct. I have deeply studied scientific racism. I have deeply unpacked eugenics by its very authors. Okay, race is a made up thing to help us put each other in different buckets. Okay, well, here we are in a different bucket, kiddos. We're white people, some of us rich, some of us poor, and the rich are not satisfied with imprisoning black and brown folks. Oh, they rape them too, by the way. Like, a rapist is a rapist is a rapist. But here's why I bring this up, because I think white people get this exceptionalism, and it just trips us up. Y'all, the pedophile class fills out orders for white girls like it's a fucking menu at a sandwich shop. The enslaver class post-Civil War sent their daughters to ameliorate, whatever that looks like, the president, to encourage pardons for these men. Okay. Now, when I was growing up, we didn't talk about gender. Gender was definitely a factor, but we didn't talk about it. Okay. I did not know the word transgender coming up in the 80s. There were other words for it. Sharing those words isn't exactly necessary for what I'm trying to get across. You were born a boy or a girl was the way it came up in the 80s, or the way I experienced it in the 80s. I knew that wasn't the end of it, because out there in Minneapolis, Prince Rogers Nelson saved my life. Prince showed me that gender is a performance before Judith Butler. Okay? Prince showed me before Judith Butler that you do you however you need to do you. Prince was like, ooh, look at me in this suit. Look at me in this suit with these ruffles. And that man, well, he says, I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, I'm something you can never understand. Prince transcended the boxes that I was offered. Now, here's what I'm going to say to today's kids and elders, all of y'all, like everybody, but take it from your place and use it in a way that helps you understand others, okay? There were still tomboys when I was growing up, okay? I was called a tomboy. I was called a tomboy. I was the butchiest little lesbian there ever was. Now, here's the thing. In some ways, that made me safer. The resale value on little butches, because that's what we're talking about here. The buying and selling of children. The buying and selling of children. We little butches, little girl butches, we weren't the preferred product either. Now, that didn't keep us safe from violence on the street. That didn't mean that if we weren't walking down the road, we wouldn't be grabbed and put in a van and found dead somewhere. Okay. It just meant we weren't going to the Epstein Island. Okay. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about additional protections that failed, because my mother did protect me about the van, but she didn't protect me about family. And when you look into the issues of girls being trafficked, too often the family is either involved in the case of sending girls to Washington to gain pardons for the Confederates after the Civil War, okay, or in the case of the Epstein files, where girls were somehow handed over. Y'all need to get to the bottom of this. How did these girls get handed over to these rich folks? Like, I don't know about y'all, but even in my very poor upbringing, we were taught how to be a guest, how to go into someone's home and be a guest, not a commodity. Okay? Not a commodity. I think where I'm going with this is these families are not completely unaware of what's happening. Because another thing my mother told me is there's no such thing as a free lunch. Those girls, in a transaction, be it for healthcare, as is the case for one of the Epstein survivors, okay? Be it for a pardon from a president for Civil War atrocities. These girls were used as a commodity. My mother knew there were unsafe people in our family. Now here's where, oh, it's okay, girl. Now here's where I know we're gonna have Swalwell come up in the mentions here. My mother knew there were unsafe people in the family. And in fact, before we went and visited one family member, I remember my mother taking me aside and she said, Darlene, that's my full name, my full first name, my full first government name, my full first government name by birth on my birth certificate. She said, Darlene, so-and-so in the family is not safe. I need you to make sure your brothers are not left alone with him. Now I'm 11. And I take my brothers very seriously. I will make their lives miserable, but nobody else will. That's what I'm thinking when I'm age 11. And so we went on this visit. And sure enough, because boys are not immune either, sure enough, that suspicious family member was trying to get both of my brothers alone in a far off place from the main part of the home where he could close the door very easily and victimize them. I had been given this sense of duty. As the eldest child, I was given the duty of protecting my brothers from a rapist. But I didn't have the skills. I should, coulda, woulda gone and been like, Ma, this is happening. They are at this location. It looks unsafe. Ma, I shoulda, but I did not because it was too dangerous of a situation. I didn't feel like I could even leave them for a minute to go get Ma. I'm not giving you the details of the interaction, but I will tell you this. All my life, I've had the ability to interrupt bullshit. I interrupted that bullshit, and I got my brothers out of that situation. And I placed myself in it instead. I don't know if that ultimately kept my brothers safe. It definitely stopped at that one time. I'm not going to speak in detail of what happened. I will tell you I was raped. Everybody fucking knew so-and-so was a very unsafe person. Swalwell. What? I'm finding out now that a whole community knew he was a little too flirty. Y'all stop with the code. Speak for real. Or learn the code. Learn the code that a little flirty means this one will not respect your bodily autonomy and he will hurt you. So, one piece of way my mother kept me very safe. One piece of way my mother tried to keep me safe, but inadvertently, because I didn't know how to keep me safe, I still got hurt badly. Sexual violence is not just a white thing, but it is a white people in power thing. It is a white people in power thing. So if you are a person who thinks for 1 minute you're going to come up in this system and not face sexual violence, You ain't facing facts. You are not facing facts. I think what I want to do now is tell you that I had a dream last night. And I think it's in my dreams where things synthesize, come together. I think trying to digest all of these disparate atrocities and synthesize them into a helpful, meaningful way to move forward. Okay. Eventually, my dreams were invaded and said, Dar, look at this situation. So in my dream, I was made young again. I was made vulnerable in that young way again. And in that dream, just like the little urchins in Charles Dickens's stories, we were little street urchins. Now, I was poor. I don't know what it is to be rich. I don't know what it is to have country club privileges. We were little urchins, okay? And in the dream, we little urchins, we were running the streets as curious little urchins do. I hope urchin isn't like an offensive thing. I think in terms of just, little mischievous kids that will definitely swipe an apple off the apple cart because they're hungry. And run away laughing at you. So it's not mean spirited. It's just live the life. But here's what you know about little kids. We're curious. We're curious and exploratory. And we were sucked in to a building. And in that building, there were people who had already been victimized. And those people who had already been victimized had grown up. And they were given drugs. And we little kids were like, ooh, a buzz, yay. And then we're victimized. Now, the 80s, this is your brain on drugs. And the 80s, this is a gateway drug. And the 80s, they don't give you drugs for free except to hook you on drugs. I don't know that those are the bold ass truth. I think they give people drugs to make them malleable. And those poor gals that were trafficked to the Trumpstein class circle, they were given drugs. Probably so they could just survive the psychological abuse. They were given drugs. Anyway, I woke from that dream. I'm not anti-drug, by the way. I am not anti-drug. I'm saying we don't always pay attention to the real threats. This is your brain on drugs, crack an egg into the frying pan. That may be true in some case somewhere, but what is more often true is that children are lured with kittens and puppies at one age, and the promise of a good toke on a joint at another age, or a little bit of alcohol at another age, or, just whatever it is, right? Teen pregnancies in the 80s were high, and you can go back and look at the numbers. We were predated on by older men, and teen pregnancies went through the flippin' roof. Teen pregnancies are down. And there was actually reporting this week about that. And some people are like, oh no, this is terrible. What will happen to the population if we don't have teenagers impregnated? What? Y'all, listen to the people around you. When they're using women and girls as commodities, and also boys, I was put in a very dangerous situation because everybody knew that my little brothers could also be harmed. Okay? And here's where I'll close it. If you're not being honest about the real dangers to women and girls, but I'm going to say boys and other genders too. But I think the narrative right now nationally is protect your girls, protect your women. Do you want men playing women's sports? You know what, DoorDash grandma? Bless you. Bless you, DoorDash grandma, that you understood enough about your place in the world and enough about the issues that you could stand next to a very powerful man. I'm not even going to say the most powerful person in the world because that ain't true by a long shot, but a very powerful man who has access to the fucking nuclear football. Like, you stood, grandma, DoorDash grandma, you stood next to a very powerful man, and that man put you on the spot trying to pit you against transgender people. And what did you do, DoorDash grandma? God, I want to know your name for real, but I just need you to know, DoorDash grandma, whoever you really did vote for, whatever things you have failed at, I want you to know that that moment when you were next to the president and he tried to get you to buy into his anti-trans propaganda, DoorDash grandma, I want you to know that when you looked that dude right in the eye and said, I'm here to talk about no taxes on tips, you didn't fall for the okey doke. You didn't fall for the okey doke. Now, there's some grandma wisdom in you, and I cannot wait to hear more from you. Now, I'm sharing what I'm sharing for a few reasons. I think depending on our economic status, depending on our gender, if we all take a minute, if we were alive in the 80s or 90s or aughts, wherever we grew up in, if we take a look at the messaging around how to keep safe from predators in the world, I think we're going to find that there's a lot of false messaging. And I'm telling you now that I think it's on purpose. Not only do I think it's on purpose, I really in my heart of hearts know it's on purpose. Because a trans person, a person who has looked at the options that society says are okay, you may be this. You were born with a penis, you are allowed to be a boy. You were born with a vulva and a vagina, you are allowed to be a girl. In this way of thinking, there is no room for intersex. So you will be discovered when we test you, and then you will be rooted out. Or intersex, you will be discovered at birth, and without your consent, any additional flesh that looks to be male will be removed, and you will be female. Like these are the choices that we are being forced into. I refused those choices and went with tomboy. I came up in a time where I was just called an incorrect woman. I don't care. But a trans person, a person who is transgender, who says they are transgender, who is self-actualized, who has had the opportunity to do the work, capital T, the capital W work about themselves and their gender. That trans person very likely is one of the safest individuals. Likely. I'm not saying that there aren't unsafe people in every demographic, but a trans person who has done their homework and has analyzed their gender and have decided this is my gender expression or this is my gender experience, they've done a lot more homework than most of us. Okay? They've done a lot more emotional homework. They've done a lot more unpacking. Most certainly unpacking about gender violence. Okay? They are not the enemy. And in my mind, any person, any politician, any movement that still disparages trans people and throws trans people up every time they want to get political clout, every time they scapegoats trans people, okay? They're giving you bad information. They're giving you bad information. What are the real and actual threats? What are the real and actual threats? Now, we need to really take seriously in our politics, in our education, in our families, protect children. I've spoken in scripted casts that there are real threats out there. The government's a real threat. As far as I'm concerned, the US government has declared war on me and my family. As far as I'm concerned, I live under a state of war, me and my family. I don't think all of y'all have joined it yet. Some of you are in a state of war and don't know it yet. Keep the kids safe means we got some unpacking to do about who the real predators are. And it's one thing to take the grandkids and go visit, family so that everybody can experience the joy of youth in their life. Because it is beautiful to watch children play and have fun, to hear their laughter, okay? But not everybody lets it be innocent. And I'm not trying to throw a direct accusation about Eric Swalwell. I have a wonderment. And I think Daniel Moody helped me see this, all the codes that were used around him. Oh, he's a little flirty. Sounds a whole lot like my mom saying, yeah, don't let the boys be alone with Uncle so-and-so. Okay? You know what? Let's be clear about the dangers. And I know we're worried about slander and we're worried about libel, but we still need to be clear about the dangers. And even if you don't feel like you have the clarity to get online and say some shit like I am, I'm getting online saying some shit. I might get some heat on it. I more likely think nobody's going to pay attention, okay? But we got to find a way, white mothers, white grandmothers, we got to find a way to not let them commodify our bodies and our children. Now I'm in that everlasting fight for bodily autonomy now. And here's what I will say. If you think trans people are the problem here, you've been absolutely duped. What's more is if you believe trans people are the problem because Governor of Missouri said so, not only have you been absolutely duped, somebody has fooled you enough that you're getting robbed blind politically because you have a fear that has been generated for you. Meanwhile, black girls in St. Louis are going missing and being found murdered. Like, y'all, real talk on the street in St. Louis is that there's a serial killer killing black girls. St. Louis Police Department, nothing. There's a market for everybody. And white girls are on the menu too. Always have been. Always will be. Act accordingly. All right. Well, thank you so much for my first experimental live stream, podcast, something. Maybe now that I've gotten this off of my chest, I can go finish that important work that I need to do, but I don't think I could do until I cleansed the spirit. I had to get it out. I had to tell y'all. You're afraid of the wrong things. if you're afraid of trans people. Yep. And they got their hands in your pocket, and the treasury is being emptied. And you know what? By the time we're done, I'll be surprised if there's a US dollar. But that's another topic. All right. I love you. And if you've been listening all the way to the end, aren't you amazing? Thank you. If you find some of what I said useful, awesome. I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm doing this more for my own psychosocial well being. But as I go, I think, why not share it? All right. Have a lovely day.